Hey folks, Mark Gentili here. I'm the managing editor of Sudbury.com. Welcome back to another edition of Tea with the Editor. Today, we're at the Salute Coffee Company on Elm Street in downtown Sudbury, and we're sitting down with Councillor Michael Vagnini. I've criticized Councillor Vagnini a couple of times over the past several months for stances that he's taken, and I invited him in to see if we could sit down and perhaps find some common ground. So we're going to go to that discussion right now, and we really appreciate you tuning in. So I'm here today with Councillor Michael Vagnini. We're sitting down in the Salute Coffee House down here on Elm Street, and we're going to have ourselves a little conversation.
Excellent. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much for joining me for Tea with the Editor. Now, I'm drinking Earl Grey. What do you're not an Earl Grey guy, though?
No, I'm not an Earl Grey guy. I'm a large coffee with 3 shots of espresso.
Oh,
That's
wow.
where I go.
There you go. That's powerful.
It is.
That's powerful. Okay, so the reason I wanted to sit down with you, I've been doing these, sitting down with people in the community, having these conversations. I've criticized you on a couple of items in the paper, and I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about some of the stances you've taken on issues in Sudbury, and really, I really wanted to kind of see if I could kind of understand your point of view a little bit. That's really what I'm trying to do, is just kind of understand people's point of view. Now, you may dispute this, but.
No, go ahead.
Well, you may dispute this, but you've kind of set yourself up among your 12 other council members. You've kind of set yourself up as a bit of a populist, as a kind of a man of the people. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think what I do is I reflect on what the people are saying to me, and from there I bring it forward. So I don't know if that makes me any different from any of the other councillors. It's just what I sit back, I take a look at it because I am a chartered financial consultant, have been in the financial industry for 34 years.
Sure.
So I look at it and from a financial perspective and say what makes financial sense. And sometimes I believe that possibly some of my colleagues may look at it from a lifestyle perspective.
Okay.
So I think that's maybe where the difference might be in some of my votes, why I go against a lot of the things that are going on.
I wanted to ask you about that because you're often the outlier on council. I mean, you're often the dissenting vote among a pack of yays. You're often you and René Lapierre, or not René Lapierre.
Robert Kerwin.
Kerwin are often sort of the odd man out, so to speak.
Well,
why do you think that is? I mean, did you deliberately set out to be sort of the odd man out, or?
No, I didn't. And what I did was, actually, it's a very good comment, because what happened was when I first became a councillor, I would put my hand up and I would vote against Maley Drive. I would vote against the bear bylaw from 5 to 7 in the morning, or the $50 fire permit. And there was only 2 of us.
Yeah.
But what started happening is when I went to the gym in the morning, they would start calling me, "Here comes 12 to 1." So that was my nickname at the gym. Yeah. So I'm glad that Kerwin's come over
to your side,
because I'm no longer 12 to 1 on that.
Yeah.
So there's the old saying about the Italian mother that says everybody in the band is out of step but her son. So a lot of times I go home at night and I think to myself, geez, did I make the wrong call on that?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it, and I'm repeating myself here, but from a financial perspective. And there are some things that council has voted where I was against, where we had to repeal, as you know, the bear bylaw 5 to 7 in the morning, and the $50 fire permit. When you deal with people's lifestyle, the whole Maley Drive issue, any of the issues that went on, I had more phone calls directly related to that $50 fire permit, more emails, more people calling me and saying, "What are you people doing for a $50 permit?" So when you touch people's lifestyle, it becomes a heavy impact on things.
Yeah, that's true. And do you think there's a bit of a difference between you and some of the other councillors in that you represent mainly rural areas of the municipality?
Yes.
Fair to say. Do you think that gives you a kind of a different perspective on the city? A lot of the other councillors sort of their words are kind of more centered around more populous areas of the community. Yours issues in the rural parts of Greater Sudbury are very different from issues in the more urban areas, right?
Absolutely. And this whole thing about one city, one service, I don't believe works.
Yeah.
And the reason why is we have to have a cultural change where before amalgamation, you had these towns, you had areas like Chelmsford, you had the Valley, you had Walden, and then you had rural areas like Beaver Lake and all those outskirt areas, and we amalgamated that all into one.
Yeah.
We have a footprint larger or just as large as Prince Edward Island, and you can't go one city, one service.
Yeah.
What we have to go back to is we have to recognize that there are three distinct areas. One, the downtown proper.
Yeah.
Two, the places like the town of Walden and Coppercliff, the Valley,
Right.
Cape Real, and then we have all those rural areas with Beaver Lake.
Yeah.
Beaver Lake is fully bilingual.
Yeah.
Its first language is Finn and second language is English. So that's a different culture all into itself.
No, you're right.
And you know, when we look at it, and we look at where the most effective tax rate is for population-wise, it's somewhere between 30 to 35,000. Okay, some studies have suggested that. Let me qualify that. These are my comments and nobody else's. So you look at a community like the Valley, where they have everything from their own Canadian Tire, their own really nice McDonald's, their own grocery stores. It's a self-contained economy right there, and that's where they were prior to amalgamation.
Yeah.
And you look at it, there was no debt in all these outlying areas. Amalgamation was supposed to be efficiencies brought together, but we went from a total employee with the 7 areas of 1,705. Now when you include part-time hours, we're over 2,400 people working at within the greater city of Sudbury. We have a lot of great people there, but when you look at the percentage, it's larger than a 30% increase in the manpower. And our services have come down. So in the rural area, sorry Mark, I apologize.
No, go on, Mike.
In the rural area, they see things, they're more concerned about the essential services. So they're concerned about fire, they're concerned about EMS, they're concerned about police.
I think everyone's
garbage
concerned
pickup.
about those things.
But they can forego on large-scale projects. They can forego on that. They just want to have their roads fixed.
Well, where do you think that comes from, though? Like, do you think, just at the issue of amalgamation, I've said in the past a few times, on Sudbury.com and in Northern Life that I think that the city was sold a bill of goods when it comes to amalgamation. We were promised the world, and it was a case of overpromise and seriously underdeliver in a lot of instances. Do you think that there is a lot that we're still living with the fallout of sort of a failed amalgamation process? Was it a failed amalgamation process?
Yes, I believe that amalgamation does not work. I know there are some people that say, oh yeah, things are great and everything is fantastic, but I'm going to use the town of Walden for example. We had 25 pieces of snow removal equipment. Now I'll talk about roads for a second because there's 3,600 kilometers of roads within the greater city of Sudbury. In Walden and Coppercliff, or the old Walden, sorry, and Coppercliff, we have 800 kilometers. So we have 22.5% of the roads of the 12 wards. So we have the lion's share. So in the wintertime, my phone calls are not about potholes because they get filled in by snow, but about snow removal.
The roads are better in the winter.
They are, because they're all filled in. So what happens though is because of the fact that prior to amalgamation, we had 25 pieces of snow removal equipment. Today we have 3 city trucks in our area.
And it's true. I mean, we hear those complaints all the time. The outlying areas. And I live in Coniston, so I mean, I live on a small street in Coniston. When there's a huge snowfall, mine is not the first street getting done.
Right.
Like many other parts of the city, we don't have the population. We don't have the traffic. So we have to wait. Now. That being said, what can the city do? I mean, we can't turn back time. We can't de-amalgamate. We can't return all those pieces of equipment to Chelmsford and Lively, and we can't have. We just can't turn back the clock.
Right.
But is there something that the city can do to make services better for people living in rural areas?
That will take a cultural change and a structural change, and what it comes down to is a lot of times the people that are making the decision are the furthest away from that particular area. So what do I mean by that? They're making decisions about things that have going on in Beaver Lake when some of the people have not even seen where Beaver Lake is. So I think we have to change in mindset, and we have to start thinking differently on the way we address things, and we've got to go back to what I said earlier, identifying the needs of the towns, identifying the needs of the rural area, because they are different.
That's true, and yes, definitely their needs are different, but how can you walk me through that? Do you have an idea of how that might work? Because you know, we can't, there's only so much equipment, there's only so much manpower to go around, and as you said, the city staff, you know, we've increased the number of people that are employed by the municipality precisely for the reason that we have this massive area that we have to deal with. But, you know, what can we do? What are some tangible things?
I think what we have to do right off the bat is we've got to tear down the silos. And I think what happens is we have silos. What do I mean by that?
Yeah.
Is we have a road that has to be repaired, and they'll go out to repair that road because it's all broken up or whatever the case is, where there could be a water leak underneath it, and they'll fix the water, and then they'll come back and go back in to fix the water later. So we need better communication within the city, and we've got to change the way we address things from 17 years ago.
Sure.
At Amalgamation. What do I mean by that? Our transit. I watch the buses in my ward go by, and they're empty. They're empty, and they're going and making all these ins and outs in different streets. We should be straightening the road out and not applying what we did 17 years ago at the time of Amalgamation. We have a priority plowing system.
Yep.
I watch the plows deadhead on different areas because of the way our priority plowing the system. So we almost have to go back to the ABCs and say, okay, what did work, what is working, and where do we take it further?
But aren't those priority plowing areas set up because there's only so much snow removal budget, so doesn't it make, let me rephrase that. Does it not make more sense to plow the areas that get the most traffic before you plow the areas that get the least?
Does it make sense to go down a bus route and pass 3 streets to go to a different bus route when you could have just plowed those 3 streets when you were right there? So I think...
You didn't answer my question.
Okay, well, ask again, because I don't know what you're asking now.
Well, I mean, isn't there some logic in, you know, if we're just referring to plowing, like we'll just take plowing as an example. If we're referring to snow removal, does it not make sense to remove snow from the areas that get the most traffic before you remove it from the areas that get the least? Does that not make logical sense?
Yes, that does. Okay, so I understand that part of it.
Yeah.
But we are doing a lot of deadheading where we could be plowing at the same time.
Right.
So as opposed to running from one side of a town to the other side of a town, we could say, well, let's take and make what makes sense on it. And what I was saying earlier, today we only have 3 city vehicles within the ward, and then when we get an all roads call out, which is 8 centimeters or more, we get another 6 contractors. And unfortunately, some of these rural areas, some of those roads do not show up on there, and if it's on a weekend and you have a part-time individual, it's not their fault. But they're having a struggle where they're going.
Is that the biggest issue in rural areas, is sort of road maintenance and snow removal? I'm sure there are others. You've brought up a number of other issues that you say people in rural parts of the city are losing out.
Yes. And so when the perception, and perception is right or wrong, but their perception is a lot of the money is coming into the downtown area proper, and a lot of the rural areas for infrastructure, for services that they used to have before that have gone away.
But is that perception true?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see it when, you know, we don't even have a budget today for maintenance. So a lot of our buildings have been are tired, have maintenance issues, and there's no maintenance budget. What we do is we fix things as they go along. In the old world, they would be acted upon right up when there was an issue prior to, or they would be doing maintenance on it.
Right. And do you think that's because the municipality is so massive that it's just too complicated to
Sure.
Is that the reason, you think?
I think that's probably one of the biggest part of the reasons. You know, we talk about when some of these financial organizations centralized everything 20 years ago, and now they've come back and they said, you know, centralization of everything isn't more efficient, and now they've gone back to where they've spread things out. And I think that's what has happened with the city, is we have centralized everything for the efficiency purposes that I talked about earlier, but now we've got to go back and say, okay, hey, it can't be all controlled from one area. You've got to go to the different areas and find out what makes sense for those people.
For sure. But now, as I said earlier, you're kind of an outlier on council. I mean, you're often the guy who's sort of voting alone. But you're not the only councillor who represents rural interests. So is there a relationship, or can there be a relationship, or should there be a relationship between the councillors who represent the more rural areas?
We are councillors at large.
Yeah.
Okay, we are councillors at large, but we all also ward councillors.
Yes, well, you're often ward councillors before you're councillors at large. Well, sorry, your council has been a little bit more broad-minded, shall we say, than previous councillors, but there are still, there's rural wards and urban wards, and how come the rural ward councillors aren't, voting together as a block or working together as a block to get some of these issues, more front and center?
You're going to have to ask them that.
I'm asking you, though. You're the one sitting here.
Okay. but I can't.
Well, from your perspective, I'm just asking for your perspective on it.
Well, I think everybody has a different point of view in that. And again, what I said earlier, I look at things from a financial perspective, and I look at the numbers. And if I see that the numbers do not make sense to me, then that's when I stay away from that.
No, I understand that. But have you tried to broach that subject with some of your other rural councillors? I mean, you're a charismatic guy. You got the flashy suits. You are the voice of the people. You have nice running shoes.
Oh,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Have you made sort of have you made attempts to get the rural councillors to sort of work on issues that affect rural councillors, like work on them together, vote as a block, that sort of thing?
Well, then that's kind of moving business forward if we're going to vote as a block on something.
That's what I mean. Isn't that a good way of? I mean, if rural issues are so important, why can't you all come to?
We are talking about that. We are talking about that. You look at fire optimization, and what that did. We're going to talk about fire optimization right now, and what it did is it single-handedly started the whole downtown city proper against the outlying areas.
In what way?
Again, what it does is people are saying, let's de-amalgamate again. We want to de-amalgamate. We want our own issues. We didn't have problems with fire before. We didn't have problems 17 years ago with fire. I've had phone calls about policing issues. I've had phone calls about road issues. I've had phone calls about parks and playgrounds and streetlights. I've never had a phone call about our volunteer fire department that we have out in our particular area.
Right. But wasn't that, and no, I'm not defending the fire optimization plan. I criticize the fire optimization plan. But wasn't that an attempt to provide to the rural areas the same level of service that the more urban areas of the city are getting? Wasn't that Why?
Yeah.
By ensuring that professional firefighters are responding to scenes wherever in the city within a few less than 10 minutes.
Okay, so you're going to tell me right now that somebody from Van Horn Station is going to get out to Beaver Lake in 10 minutes. It's not how quick, let me finish.
That was the attempt. I'm just saying what the attempt was.
It's not at how fast they come out of the gate, Mark. If they're out of the gate at a minute and a half, and volunteers take 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, I don't care about that. What I care about is how long it takes them to get to the scene. Yeah. If we're going to start we've got to remember that our fire calls have come down. Yep. So if we're going to take our career people and we're going to put them out, we need career people. In the downtown core, career works very well.
Right.
But in the outlying areas, the volunteers and the cost to manage that makes more sense to have volunteers. If we put 18 career firefighters in the Waters fire station, they would almost be like the Maytag repairman.
They'd have nothing to do?
They would have nothing to do for 2-3 weeks at a time, unless we started sending them out to car accidents or medical responses. But we don't need that. Our system works good the way it is right now. What we do need is to bring more recruits on.
I just want to be clear that we're not criticizing firefighters, we're not criticizing careers or volunteers. We're talking about the system, and we're talking about the process that's in play. You have said that there's issues with dispatch in terms of there's paging issues, there's equipment issues, and there's delay. Right? And there's recruitment and retention issues with volunteers as well.
So when we're talking about that, and yes, we are not criticizing career firemen, we're not criticizing volunteer firemen, what we are criticizing is the process right now. Right now, people feel that they're disserviced in the rural areas, so right or wrong, they had it really good when we had the old prior to amalgamation. So this fire has just put one more log on the fire, no pun intended, but And now, people, believe it or not, because of this, it says, yeah, we want to demalgamate. We just don't like what's going on.
Yeah.
When you look at the area fire rating, there's people that have actually said that the people in the downtown are subsidizing the fire out in the rural areas.
You've said that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's completely incorrect, because
Okay.
because the way the fire rating works, when they created it in 2004, it's actually a very good system.
Right.
And what they do is they take all the inventory of assets in the career section, and they base the fire rating on that.
So Trevor Bain has said that numerous times. Is he lying?
Well, I don't know if Trevor Bain's lying, but the report that I have, that's actually here, and it was done last year.
Because Trevor Bain has said by sending career firefighters out to call anywhere in the city, rural areas aren't paying to have that service, but they're still receiving it. That's a subsidy,
but
is
that's,
it not?
they have chosen to send the career fire trucks out.
I'm not disputing that.
No, so they have chosen that. Okay, that it was their mandate.
Yep.
But we had the volunteers. So what they're doing is now they're calling off some of the volunteer stations.
But that still means that urban areas are subsidizing some firefighting in rural areas by sending those career firefighters out there because they're not paying for that service.
Okay, but why?
I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. I'm just saying that's a fact.
That's right. But if we had the volunteer service, why are all the outlying areas around us, like Nairn Centre, population of 400, they have 20 volunteer firefighters? Why does Espanola have 28 volunteer firefighters? And their whole budget is $350,000 for Espinola's fire,
Yeah.
and the chief is the only full-time individual, and the rest are all volunteers.
Yeah.
And they don't have a problem getting enough people to go inside to do a structure fire. So why are the outlying areas, and they say, well, because some of our rural areas, we just can't get the volunteers out because of lifestyle and change in dynamics.
Yeah.
No.
They've said they've had recruitment issues with people who are can't do the job.
Okay, so what's going on right now is if they don't have their CPR, then their application has gone out the window. So I'm getting emails right now that people are saying, yes, I put in my application, but I've received a response because I don't have my CPR. And these are good people, these are fit people, these are people that I probably wouldn't want to go in a ring with.
But who don't have their CPR.
But they don't have their CPR. Okay, so...
Should they have it? Shouldn't they have it?
Think about it for a second, Mark, okay? If this is the rule that's cast in stone, if this is a rule that's cast in stone and they don't have the CPR, then give them a mandate and say, okay, you need to have that CPR in a month. You need to have that. If you've got a good person, give some leeway to that. And if we say that we have all the issues are cut and dry, and we can't change that because that's our policy, well then how come we have a report from the CCI that says that we have deficiencies that are dealing with health and welfare to the tune of $1.8 million, probably that was from 2014, and we haven't acted on those. So
that's a good point.
Where is the rule set in stone, and why can't we give a little wiggle room for the people to get their CPR? Because if you have a good body,
I agree.
And I'm not just going to be blowing in your mouth for a month or two. I'm going to wait until I get my CPR.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that?
Maybe nothing, but and your criticisms are certainly valid. But my criticism of your approach to criticizing the fire plan was by some of the comments you made and some of the things that you have said. I was given the distinct impression that you believe there was some sort of concerted conspiracy in the background to deny services to the rural areas in order to benefit the urban areas of the city. There was some sort of conspiracy to benefit urban over rural.
Mark.
Am I totally
I'm not
off
part
base?
of the Secret Service
No, that's
or
not
the
what
KGB.
I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
There's no conspiracy going on.
But I'm saying that some of the things you said certainly implied that there was some sort of effort by the fire service
That's your interpretation. And if they're not there to beef up the volunteer side, and we're not focusing on that particular area,
but Michael, you've said that Trevor Bain's optimization plan wasn't an attempt to boost the career firefighters at the extent of the volunteers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because you're sending people. Oh, it's not a conspiracy. It's just the.
That would be a conspiracy.
Well, it depends on what you interpret it conspiracy as, because I don't see that as a conspiracy. I see that as a presentation going out to the communities, and there were 9 different plans that were shown or 9 different presentations, or they were different and adjusted through that area before it actually even came to council. And then when it came to council, of course, it was 13-0 on the whole thing. But what were they thinking? I'm the chair for the Greater Sudbury Police Services. If Chief Pedersen decided to change the way policing was done across the city and never came to the board first, I think people would have a concern about that.
But he doesn't work for the city, though. Trevor Bain works for the city, so there's a different relationship there. But I understand your point.
No, there's an analogy, though. You can draw an analogy.
I get your point.
It's not apples. It's not apples and hamburgers, but
they're both fruit.
That's right.
That was a good line. I like that.
So, going back to what I said about that, I said we need to look at our process, the process that we have in place. And the fire rating is adjusted for the career area, the fire rating is adjusted for the composite area, and the fire rating is also adjusted for where the volunteer area is. So there is no subsidies going on by tax purposes, it's just perception of people sending a career truck out to an area where you have a fire station.
But the tax rate's different. How is that not?
What do you mean the tax rate's different? No, it's a different tax rate for each area.
Yeah, the area exactly. So the area rating for Beaver Lake is different than it is for downtown.
Correct.
And there people in Beaver Lake are paying less than people downtown.
Correct. Yes.
So I mean.
Yeah. No. And it's all based on the cost, the base cost, and the cost for suppression. So those are the 2 key factors when we look at area rating.
Sure.
So there is a real misperception when people are saying that the downtown is subsidizing tax-wise the rural areas, because that doesn't happen.
I don't want to get too bogged down in numbers, because again I think we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about.
I just like to disagree. Even if you're right, we're talking about the same thing.
That's fine. No, but I just don't want to get too bogged down in numbers, because what we're talking about really is the relationship that exists in Greater Sudbury between the rural parts of the municipality and the urban parts of the municipality.
Yes.
And we still, after 17 years of amalgamation, have not ironed that out.
Correct. And Dave Quartermash, when he was the mayor, he back in 2006, he asked Floyd Logren to do a study, and that was a consolation. And there was some things in there that made really good sense, and it talked about trying to bring together, that this whole area and identifying the rural area, the towns, and the city. Now, he didn't go to that extent, but it was going in that direction. That kind of died by the wayside, and here again, it's loud and clear. And they talk about, and we'll go to this in a second, but I'm hearing from the people, and I'm not just hearing from the people in my ward. I'm getting calls from people in all of the other rural areas saying that, this is a real issue, and demalgamation. I tell them, no, we can't demalgamate. It's not going to happen.
But we certainly can do a better job.
Correct. Absolutely.
So again, we're back to the same sort of thing. Why can't you put some sort of motion on the table to come up with a study or a report or something to figure out a better way of distributing services throughout the municipality? Isn't that something that the city is capable of doing? Isn't that something that you as a councillor is capable of getting started?
So I have 152 electoral issues that came about, 40 when I did my original 28 town hall meetings. From that, I generated reports and I sent them in. And I was the goody two-shoes councillor.
That's different from a motion, right? That's different from making from getting a consensus on council.
Well, you're cutting me off.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me finish. So I sent those reports in, and I said, this is what we can do here, this is what we can do there. And I don't know where those reports are. And I brought this to our new CAO's attention, and I said, I brought all these reports in, what happened to them? And I haven't seen any of them come back. Some of them have come back. So
but that's different. That's not. But you filing a report with the CAO or with a department manager or something, that's far different from you going to your fellow councillors and saying, look, It's been 17 years since we amalgamated. Services are still not streamlined across the entire city. There is still a rural-urban divide that doesn't need to exist. There is a better way of delivering services. There has to be a better way of delivering services to rural areas of the city. Can we not, as a council, come up with a plan to begin fixing those issues? I'm not talking about individual piecemeal reports on things. I'm talking about something tangible, something big that all of council can get behind. Can you not lead something like that?
Can I not lead something like that? Yeah.
Can you not take the lead on that?
Sure.
Because you're the guy who's making the most noise about these issues, and I think you're right. Those issues are very real, but no one has taken the bull by the horns, really, and said we need to fix this. We need to do something as a council, as a community, and work together. Because there's no reason why people in Beaver Lake should hate downtown, or people in downtown should not think anything of Lively. You know what I mean? We're all part of the same city.
Right. I hate is a very strong word. Hate is a very strong word.
There is a certain. I mean, you said yourself. There's a significant amount of tension between parts of the city.
Absolutely. That's just
that doesn't need to be
way.
there, though.
Yes, and so that is something where we've got to go. Now you've got to remember, all of this has just come to light again. This has all come to light again. I came back after 2.5 years. I really tried to hear what the people had to say.
Sure.
Okay, so and coming back from that direction. This is where I came out, and I think I shared with you that one article that I put together now on why I feel that there's issues based on what the people have told me where the issues are. So that is something that needs to be done. And yes, I guess in a roundabout way, the next stages are what can we possibly do?
Yeah.
And is demalgamation even, what would it cost us to do something like demalgamate? The cost for any of that would be just horrendous.
Oh, I mean, the whole notion of deamalgamation is just, it's not feasible. It's
Right.
not something we can do. But why can't you, I mean, we have some we have some city managers who we have hired, and we pay a significant amount of money based on their expertise. We hire them, so they must have some knowledge. I mean, Trevor Bain, and I'm not defending Trevor Bain, but he took a lot of flack for doing that One City, One Service fire optimization plan. But he was instructed by council to do it. Like, he was told by council to come up with, to show them what it would take to do it, right? Even if the plan wasn't any good, he did what he was asked to do. How he rolled it out, all that is nonsense. But can we, I mean, do we not have intelligent enough department managers that we can somehow come together and say, look, we need to come up with some kind of plan for the entire city, not just, these sort of piecemeal things.
Yes, we do. We have great people that work at the city, and I think what has to come from council is that direction that you're talking about.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? What are the plans? What are the cultural changes? What are the structural changes? What do we have to do to make this more effective, even though we have X amount more bodies and an increase in workforce? Where is it going to change for all those areas? Because people are very frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, it must be hard to be. I mean, I'm lucky because I'm on the outside looking in. So, but you're sort of on the inside looking out in a way as a city councillor. I mean, Sudbury is a huge area. There's so many. We have so much of a tax. We have so much of a burden in terms of expenses and very limited tax base.
Correct. Now, interesting that you say that, because if you take the budget from back in 1999 and you escalate that with inflation, it works out to about almost the same budget that we have today.
Yeah.
Okay? But you've got to remember that the report that came out in 2021, we're going to be $3 billion in deficit on our roads, infrastructure, water, wastewater, and buildings maintenance.
It's kind of a misleading number, but yeah.
Okay, what's misleading about it?
Well, as Ed Archer has explained, CEO Ed Archer has explained, the infrastructure deficit only exists at the $1.5 billion to $3 billion range if you were to take our entire assets and return them to pristine condition. That's not something anyone's talking about.
Well, is it pristine condition?
That's what Ed
or,
said.
Or
That's what
is it bringing it up to a level of standard where it's sufficient? Because I have roads.
What Archer said was pristine.
Okay, well, then that's a debate that you have to have with Mr. Archer, because I'll tell you why. No, because I'll tell you why. Because I have roads that are crumbling. I drive down MR10.
I drive in the city every day.
And the road, as you're driving down it, it's crumbling and it's coming off.
Yeah, and you
know
can
what?
find in every part of the city you can find that.
Here's a good one for you. The Greenway. $8.5, $8.6 million for that. For $8.6 million, we can do 77 kilometers of surface treatment on roads.
Yeah.
When a guy like me, when we're sitting there and we have 800 kilometers of roads, and in the city there's 171 kilometers of roads that have failed. 33 kilometers of those roads are out in my ward.
Yeah.
We only have a budget.
That's true.
Of that 33, we only have a budget to do 3 kilometers a year. Okay, so 33 kilometers. Well, it's an 11-year program of failed roads, not the other roads. And now what's going to happen is after 4 or 5 years, more roads will be failing.
That was true. I mean, we can. So, we have enough of a tax base that if we wanted to pool all our money and build a rocket ship, we could do that too. But roads aren't our only expense. We have all kinds of expenses.
Okay, but
so there has to be like a cogent plan, right?
Okay, yes, but now we're going back to the downtown and the rural areas, because what people in the rural areas, they don't want new projects going on. They want our existing stuff fixed up.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about Maley Drive, and I believe the overrun on that, not going to be $80 million, it's going to be anywhere from $120 to $150 million. And really, Maley Drive, in my mind, and this is just me talking because I was the only one that voted against it, what I believe is that road will not become a road that's going to be effective until phase 2 and 3 are there. And when will phase 2 and 3 happen? Will it be in our lifetime? Will it be in our grandchildren's lifetime? Yeah. So I stand fast that is going to be a big white elephant for us. And I really believe that. And you take a look at the last.
Not too many people agree with you on that.
Well, it depends on where you live. But
I mean, people who actually study our roads and study our traffic and study how things. I mean, those are the people who said this road is necessary.
Why are we building new when we can't keep up to fixing the old? And so now we're going to go back to the whole budget thing.
You're going back. I don't want to get bogged down in Maley Drive, but I mean, there are a number of projects that the people that we pay good money to study these things and make recommendations to us have said these are projects that are needed.
Mark,
just because someone disagrees.
Mark, listen to me for a second.
Yeah.
Our last 10 projects that the city has done, which one has come in on budget? The biosolids plant, the transit, the Notre Dame and LaSalle corner, downtown, the elevator. The elevator went from $1 million to $3 million. Okay, so which one of our last 10 projects have come in on budget? Okay, because I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe that is.
I'd like you to find me an example of a city bureaucracy that does anything on budget.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think that's a fair criticism.
Okay. So we'll go in that direction in a little bit in further. What I do want to finish is a talk that we were having with regards to the whole rural area and what has happened. And so we went at Amalgamation, we had 68 councillors, mayors, and deputy mayors, down to 13.
Sure.
So the voice of the people has diminished. And absolutely, because in my ward, and I'm going someplace with this because you brought up the brain trust thing, and in my ward, we had 6 councillors in Walden, we had 1 in Coppercliff, we had a deputy mayor and a full-time mayor. Yeah. Okay? So when you picked up the phone, you weren't just calling Vagnini. On any given day, I get between 50 and 75 emails, not every day.
Sure.
Rainy days, snow days, and Mondays are the most, and 20 to 25 phone calls. Yeah. So I came up with the idea based on the fact that I can't do it all on my own. So when we did the 28 town hall meetings across, I listened to what the people said, and they said, you know what, you've got to come in with a voice. So I created a team of advisors. And on any given day, that team of advisors could be 3, it could be 10, it could be, and they could be from all different parts of my ward. So my team of advisors aren't there to tell me what to do. They give me their opinions on the different things that they have, and then from there, I make the decision based on that.
But don't we employ 2,500 people for the city that you could serve as advisors who are actually knowledgeable about these things?
So they're going to actually come out and, no, we have 12,000. The councillor has 12,000 voices out in his ward, and that voice is over
But the
there.
issues that you're talking about, though, are issues that we pay city staff to be experts in.
Okay.
But you're getting your advice from people who aren't experts. They're just people with opinions.
They're not people with opinions. They're the people that are out there. I have to go back.
What do you mean people who are? But what do you mean by people who are out there? If I have a problem with my car,
right?
I don't go to my neighbor. I go to a mechanic. You know why? Because the mechanic is a mechanic. He knows what he's talking about. My neighbor is just some guy.
But here's where you're wrong. There's a ton of mechanics out there that have maybe retired, that have been great in the engineering field, have been good in the legal field, and we have a ton of resources within the greater city of Sudbury that we can be drawing on. So shame on me, because if we have a box here that we're dealing with, and I go out to the public and I say, what do you want? And what are the options? You ask the people,
I'm not
and the
saying you
people.
shouldn't
No. But listen to me. You ask the people what they want, and you can bring that back, and that's what I do.
That's true, but we're not talking about sort of polling your constituents or holding public meetings and getting their opinion. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this sort of brain trust of people that your group of advisors, as you call them, that you've surrounded yourself with. But the perception that we have is that you are taking their advice over the advice of the people at the city that we employ to be experts in those areas. Is that not true?
I take the advice of the people. I take the advice of the people.
But the people aren't experts, Michael.
Yes, they are. There's a ton of experts out there.
Maybe some of them are, but we pay people at the city to think about those things every single day.
Okay, then why isn't our city fixed perfectly? Why does the people out there, so
because
you've gone from 68...
Everything is complicated.
Okay, but no, you've gone from 7 councillors in our area down to 1 councillor, no mayor, and no deputy mayor, and now you're saying that the voice of the people should be diminished because and take the fact that the city people are going to tell us what to do.
Michael,
we have over 20 engineers.
We have a representative democracy.
Over 20
we elected
engineers.
you people to make decisions for us. That's why we have democracy.
And where do you get the decisions from? You get the decisions from the people.
No.
Based on what the people say. It's what the people want.
In a way, it is what the people... We elected you to make decisions for people. Democracy is we elected you to make decisions for us. Who you can go and get your...
And where do you get your answers from? You've got to hear what the people say. Then guess what? Then maybe I'm not a very good counselor because I'm out there listening to the people and I'm not making decisions. I'm not going to be the guy. I'm not going to be... No. I'm not... Well, you're putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm not going to...
Yes, you are. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to say, you know what? Let's take a chance with taxpayers' dollars and we're going to spend $100 million on possibly arena. We got to take a chance. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to listen to the people and say, we don't need a 2.5% increase in our taxes for an arena, and because they don't want it and they want their roads fixed.
But Michael, you are elected to make decisions that you think are in the best interests of the people.
Based on what the people... No. This is where you're wrong. I work for the people. I am the voice. Absolutely.
You do work for the people, but that means you're elected to make decisions in their best interest.
And no. Council should not be a position of grandeur. And that would be a position of grandeur if I'm going to make a decision for the people based on what I think is seen. So no, you're not listening to me right now.
I am.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. I've got 12,000 people that are my voice. Those 12,000 people are my voice. And what they tell me is what I do. I don't work for the city. I work for those people. They're my employers.
They're my employers. And you're trying to make decisions for them.
No, they elected me to listen to them and then bring the decision back. That's where you're wrong. And that's just a philosophy. And that one we can't get straightened out because you're not going to agree with me because you're wrong. So, I'm telling you. So,
well, let me make a point though, because you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying.
I am not saying that you shouldn't be taking the temperature of what your electorate wants from you.
Are you kidding me?
I am not saying that.
You're not saying that?
No, I am not. You should certainly be taking a temperature of what they think.
And then
But
I
they've
come back and I
No,
report to
hold on now.
them based
No,
on
no,
what
no.
they think,
Hold on.
and based on what they say, I bring
Michael.
that forward.
Hold on. I'm not saying you shouldn't take a temperature of what your voters want. That is absolutely true. That is part of your role. However, you have to make decisions on their behalf based on the best interests, not only of what your people in your ward want, but the people
Absolutely.
what the benefits the entire city.
Absolutely.
That is part of your role.
And that's what I just said
And
to you. I'm a
let me-
councillor
let
at
me go
large
on.
and a ward councillor.
Let me go on.
And then you were the one that said, oh, you're a ward councillor first.
You are a ward councillor first. But at the same time, you are not taking advice or soliciting opinion from the people we employ at the city who are
Absolutely.
supposed to be experts in these things.
How would you not know that? How do you not know when I go down and I have a water issue, I don't go over to the water department? How do you not know I don't do that? How do you not know that I can't go out and be in Beaver Lake, Skill Lake, Panache Lake, all in the same day?
Yeah.
So if we have to spread that out, and I'm working with people to go and accomplish those things,
Yeah.
how do you not know that I go back to the city and I talk to the city people and say, hey, here's this report. This is what the issue is, and I don't offer solutions. All I do is I offer the issues and I bring them back. And I got to tell you, we've got great people that work at that city. Okay, so but they're not going to be coming out with me every Saturday and Sunday to go see the issues. I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, so I'll surround myself with people that know stuff that I do not know.
How do I know?
And
I'm basing that on the decisions that you've made, on how you voted.
what are you talking about?
Well, there's Maley Drive for one thing. Our roads experts all said it was necessary, going back for decades.
And I've looked at
all of
no,
just
they
a second.
haven't.
Just a second. All of
that project is 20 years too late.
Just a second. All of council agreed with the assessment that were provided by our roads experts going back 20 years, and the current ones today. But your opinion was in direct contravention to theirs.
Correct.
Right. So
Because I looked at it a financial perspective, and you know what they said?
And the hospital laundry is another decision where there was a report from the city that laid out exactly why the hospital laundry was a failing business, and you took an
Are you
exactly
kidding me?
opposite opinion.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about the hospital laundry service now, because we can actually do that.
We're going to have to wrap it up, but
Okay.
we're going to have to wrap it up, but.
So that whole thing with the laundry service and a hub in here, and it's not just a provincial matter. It's a federal matter and it's a municipal matter when people are losing their job. The whole thing with the laundry hub and the whole service, I've been criticized because they said it's a provincial matter. What are you even sticking your nose into it? When people lose a job in our city, it not only is a provincial matter, it becomes a federal matter and a municipal matter. We had 38 people. When you look at the direct economic impact of it, they said it was 6.5, 7 million, depending on which included in there.
Yeah.
It's a lot greater than that, because, and I'll tell you the other thing, and I'll always be fighting for the jobs, for people, and we could have possibly, and it's not over yet, but we can create a hub here. And what does that hub look like? Because right now, I'll tell you, that laundry that's going down to Mohawk, and people are scared to say anything, but it's coming back and it's soiled when it comes back. It has different matters, blood matters on there, feces matters. It has a lot of things on that, and it's mismatched, and they're having real problems with it right now. And that $500,000 that they're saving, I don't even believe it. I believe that it's going to cost them a heck of a lot more.
What are you basing that on?
What do you mean? What am I basing that on?
The savings, but it doesn't. That isn't even really the issue.
Okay.
Then
what is the issue?
The issue is that where was city and where was the council 5 or 6 or 10 years ago when the people who paid into Sudbury Hospital Services were allowing that business to go fallow? Because that's what happened.
Okay, I wasn't part of council back then, but if I was part of council, I would have been involved in that.
But you must have read the report. You must have
Yes.
read the report that the city put together.
Okay, yes, I did read the report.
That
I was
said,
the one that
because it
asked
was
for
a
the
laundry
report.
hub at one time.
Yes.
It was.
Okay.
And
So
none of the hospitals who paid into it wanted to invest in it. It is the equipment became outdated. It
The
can't
equipment
compete.
is not outdated.
Michael, that is what the report said.
Okay, but if
This
you
is a
go in
report.
and you see what the equipment, do you know what the laundry service looks like? Do you understand that it's like a big steel drum?
I
and then
understand
there's
what laundry
gears and engines in there,
But
but
Michael-
they can all be repaired, they can all be fixed.
That's what I'm talking
so
about.
you can
The
take, you know what, a lot of these consultant reports are directed.
That's not a
So-
consultant report. That was done by city staff.
Okay,
City
so-
staff that you just said are excellent people who know their jobs.
Yeah.
But this report you're saying is nonsense then.
No, I'm not saying that. Now you're
Okay.
putting words in my mouth. What I am saying is there was an opportunity to create a hub in here, and we didn't go the next step on it to see what it would look like. So that's why I've taken it to the private side. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of issues going on with the laundry. There are certain things that have come up since the laundry has been going to Mohawk, and that directly, I think was very short-sighted, and they did not go through the whole process to see what could be done here to rectify the process before they took it outside.
Maybe.
All right.
I'm not sure if that's true or not. Do you feel good about what we did here?
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I enjoy this.
Well, I really-
So you know what? I got to
Yeah,
tell you.
sure.
And we can finish up with this last comment.
Yeah, go for it.
So, what I've learned in the 2.5 years as councillor is 10% of the people, they're going to vote for you no matter what. That's going to be your mom and dad, your cousin, and those are the people that will always vote for you.
Sure.
70% of the people are going to vote for you based on what you do while you're in council.
Of course.
And then there's 20%, they're never going to vote for you because of the gel that you put in your hair, the tan that you have. They'll never ever vote for you. And the 10% are going to say, Vagnini walks on water.
Yeah.
The 20% go, yeah, but he can't swim. So I'm just wondering if you're in the 20% of that 20% that's sitting there.
I don't vote for you. I live in a totally different ward. But you know what? But I'll say this, Michael. I like you, and I really believe that you really are trying to fight for the issues in your ward, and that's admirable. That's what you were elected to do. We may not agree on how you go about
Hey,
doing it.
that's good.
But that's what democracy is all about, right?
Absolutely.
Is disagreement. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me today.
This was a lot of fun.
I really appreciated us, getting into it. That was really good, and I really appreciate Salute giving us some space to get a little loud in the restaurant. Two greasy-haired Italians going at it, folks. You can't get better TV than that.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you,
Mike.
sir.
Take care.
Well, that got a little heated, but I think we accomplished what I set out to accomplish, which was to find some common ground between Councillor Michael Vagnini and myself. I want to thank him for coming down and sitting down in front of our cameras today and having tea with me. I want to thank Salute Coffee Company for being gracious hosts. If you ever are downtown on Elm Street or out in the South End, check them out. They have 2 locations. They're local. And I want to thank you for sitting down and having tea with me today. For Sudbury.com, I'm Mark Gentili.